Hello, everyone. Welcome to Esalen Live, where we chat with change agents and we swim some deep waters. Super excited today as we explore food equity. This is something that we've been thinking about a lot these days. So much emphasis is on food right now when we talk about Thanksgiving and the gatherings that we may or may not be having right now. Food is at the center of this conversation, and it has been for some time for Sarah Nelson. She's the executive director of 18 Reasons. And 18 Reasons, if you're not familiar, is a nonprofit cooking school that empowers people with food confidence and creativity to cook at home, empower them to understand that healthy food is accessible. And Sarah's passion is really changing the narrative about who can cook food and shop for food and eat in a really healthy way. So joining us live this morning on Esalen Live is Sarah Nelson. Hello, Sarah.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We have a lot of conversations these days about food equity in your world, I imagine. Can you share with us what exactly that means so we know what platform we're springboarding from?
Yeah, so, what equity means to us is that everyone receives what they need to live their best life. That doesn't mean everyone gets the same thing. And so, for us in our work, we really focus on low income families who don't have access to healthy food and food education. If you have the funds to spend to learn about food and to buy the best food or pay someone to cook the best food for you, you don't necessarily need the help that we can offer. But what we are trying to do is reach families with food education and healthy food and just empower them to take control over their diet and make healthy choices in a way that is joyful and positive and has a big impact on them as people.
Why is it so important to change this narrative about who can do these things in our society today?
When we see healthy food represented in the media or in advertising, we often see a big, beautiful kitchen with empty marble counters and a beautiful white mom with her white daughter in matching aprons cooking a meal together. And that's just not the reality for 99% of people. And what we want people to see themselves reflected in the kitchens and the work we do. And thank you for sharing those photos from our classes, because I think that really shows, this is what we do, and these are the people we do it with. People who look like every kind of different American, who have chaotic messy kitchens with kids running around underfoot and are just trying to get dinner on the table. And that's what healthy food can look like too, and a healthy lifestyle can look like.
Right. Well, let me share some more pictures here. Tell us about your cooking school. You actually work with chefs, and do they break down recipes that are simpler, or how do you choose what you offer and share and teach?
So our cooking classes are an hour and a half long, and an hour of it is hands-on cooking. And I really love that restriction because it does limit what we can teach. We also teach in a variety of locations, including schools, clinics, after-school programs, community centers, churches, clinic, the waiting rooms of buildings. We bring all of our cooking equipment with us. We do cooking on really simple equipment, just a butane burner, a pot, a pan, a knife, a cutting board, and we show people that this really can be done.
Great
That recipe that I love to teach, because frittata, you can put anything in it. So any leftovers in your fridge, you can throw them in and make a frittata out of anything. And it's a great flexible meal that really teaches you about ingredients and leftovers and meal planning. It's also a good grab and go breakfast. You can take a slice with you and we're in the morning if you're rushing out the door, which we encourage everyone to eat breakfast. So that's actually one of my favorite recipes. I love that photo's in here.
Yeah, well, I love that photo too, and it looks mouth-watering, so we'll have to check in on that a little bit later. So let's go back to this picture here, because obviously this was taken when we could gather in large groups and when we could gather a lot, and times have changed, as you know. So I think you've gone digital with your cooking lessons. Tell us a little
We
bit about that.
have. Yeah, that previous photo is from a community dinner. We used to host a community dinner on the last Wednesday of every month. It's a $15 dinner where everyone can just come in and have a meal together. Everyone eats the same thing. It's an hour long. You just breeze in. As you can see, there's a lot of kids. It's a great event for families because you just come in, the food appears in front of you, you enjoy the company of the people at your table, and then you take off into the night. So we really miss these gatherings. But here we are on Zoom, running our cooking classes. And in some ways, our classes are more effective in a digital world because people are actually in their own home. And the whole point of our program is to get you cooking in your own home. And guess what? That's where you are now. You have no choice. So in a group class, when we were in person, you could get away with not learning a certain skill or not chopping that onion or not learning how to measure. But when you're on Zoom, yes, the chef is there, and that's my colleague Claudia up top, who's running the class, but she's not with you in your house. You're actually there doing it on your own and putting those skills into practice on your own. And you see parents and kids in this photo cooking together, which is so important to our program, because a lot of people come into our program saying, oh, my kids won't eat this. My kids are asking for that. At school, they eat this and they want that at home. I don't know what to feed my kids. They don't like vegetables. They don't like this. And what we encourage people to do is get your kids in the kitchen with you, cook with them, cook together, because that's how you're going to change your kids' habits, but maybe also some of your own habits that are holding you back from cooking the way you want to and enjoying food together with your family.
That's a really good point. And I love that your mission is so powerful. But I also see that your feel and see that your message is really so global, which is you got to get in there and do the work to just see what's possible. When people have these experiences, either through Zoom or when we could do it in person and will do it in person again, do you ever see that aha moment when they realize, like, my life could change if I really believed that this is something that I could do every single day and that I deserve it?
All the time, all the time. A lot of people have never used a chef's knife. They've never eaten a green vegetable. They've never diced an onion. They think they don't like certain things because they've never had them prepared well. And just that first day, when we pick up a knife, we teach people how to use it, we chop an onion, we make a kale salad, we make whatever we're making that day in class. You just see the light bulb going off for people that these are simple changes that they can make. People have heard for years from their doctor, right? Oh, I should eat healthy, I should eat more vegetables. But those are just words that have no meaning if you don't know how to put them into practice. And putting them into practice, I think people think it's just you have to make a complete lifestyle change and start shopping at Whole Foods and wearing yoga pants and living this life that's not you. And if it's not like that, right? You can do this in your own kitchen with the tools that you already have, with the ingredients that are available in your grocery store in your community. You can do this. And we see that in our classes every single day, because that value of hands-on learning is so important. Like picking up that knife, doing it together with your friends or doing it with your kids at home, and just seeing that you actually can do it. It's so empowering to learn a new skill and to do something that you thought was scary and intimidating and just do it and know that you can do it, and it can happen in an hour.
It's so true. I mean, that's yoga as well. You mentioned yoga pants, but yoga is literally like show up and do one thing, and then the rest, that's where it starts, is the one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you have a recipe that you adore, that you share, that is accessible, and I want to get to it right now and invite, if you're watching on this on Facebook Live, to ask questions about Sarah because she's going to cook for us. So tell us about what you're going to cook, and I shared the
Okay.
recipe on
Yeah,
Facebook as well.
get those questions coming. So what I'm making today is one of our favorite recipes. It's called ginger cilantro salmon cakes. And it's a really simple and healthy recipe that starts with canned salmon, which is an ingredient I love because canned salmon is wild salmon, and we all know that wild salmon is healthier. Canned salmon is affordable, it's available anywhere, and it is shelf stable. So if you don't like to shop every day, or you buy fresh fish and you're worried about it going bad, here's your canned salmon. You can also make this recipe with beans or canned chicken or leftover chicken or anything that you'd like. I'm going to show you how to cut an onion because this is one of my favorite skills to teach. You start by cutting off one end of the onion, not the hairy end. The hairy end is your friend. Then I'm going to make this onion, which is roly-poly. I'm going to make it flat by cutting down the middle and peeling off the skin. And when you're cutting your onion, obviously you want to not cry. Now, I have a superpower that makes me not cry when I cut my onion, and that's called contact lenses. But if you don't have this superpower, you really want to get your onion chopped as quickly as you possibly can so you don't cry. So now I've got
What's
my flat
what's
little,
quickly, Sarah? What's quickly?
just not like with your knife, but just the whole thing goes quickly. So I'm going to do this in 15 seconds, let's say. I'm going to hold my hand flat on top, cut through sideways. Now I'm going to cut towards the hairy end, but I'm not going to cut through it. And so the onion is still whole, right? I'm not releasing all those juices that are going to make you cry. And now I'm going to cut this way, da da da. And now I have my little diced onion. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. in with my salmon. And I just wanted to show you the onion because it's such a simple technique, and literally every recipe starts with chopping an onion. So learn how to do it well. I'm going to show you a little bit about the garlic too. Now this is where you can get your aggressions out. So here's a clove of garlic. Make sure your handle of your knife is off your cutting board and your knife is on your garlic, and then just smack it as hard as you possibly can. Skin comes right off. Now I can chop up my onion. When you smash it like that, you release a lot of the flavorful oils and you get a lot of flavor out of your garlic, and then you can just kind of mince it up randomly. I am not a chef, and neither are you, and that's okay. You don't have to be a chef to make great food, and you don't have to have the perfect technical skills.
You're getting a
Ginger is a
lot of
big,
compliments, by the way. You're
oh,
getting a
good.
lot of compliments about your quick knife skills. So I'm glad you called out that you're not a chef, that we can learn how to do this too.
Ginger is a big ingredient in this. I peel my ginger. Some people don't. I like to peel it, and I peel it with a spoon because a spoon is not very sharp and it just takes the skin of the ginger off, but doesn't take any of the flesh. So you can quickly just scrape the ginger with a spoon and get all the skin off. And I wanted to show you that because it's one of my favorite techniques. Now I've got my little ginger. Skin is off. And ginger is super tough, so I would spend a little bit of attention on your ginger when you're cutting it, just to make it really small because you want it to be as small as possible.
Could you grate the ginger, or is
You
chopping the
can
ginger essential
definitely
for
grate
this?
the ginger. You know, here's the thing. I don't like to have a lot of equipment get dirty in my kitchen. I'm a little bit lazy like that. So I don't like to get out my grater when I have my knife already in my hand. But grating would absolutely save some time and make your ginger even smaller. So this is going to be about 3 tablespoons, I think, of ginger. But really, when I'm using herbs and spices like this is the size of the piece of ginger that I have. That's how much ginger is going in. And I feel the same way about cilantro. I think this recipe calls for a quarter, a half a cup of cilantro. But here's the thing with fresh herbs. What am I going to do with the rest of it, right? It's probably going to rot in my fridge, or I'm going to forget about it or something. So when something calls for fresh herbs, I put in the whole bunch. But that's just me. Uh, I'm going to shave down my cilantro, get that off. You
Quick,
can use
quick question on that. When you said when something calls for fresh herbs, you put in the whole bunch, but doesn't that change the flavor of the dish?
It does, but I love herbs. So in my opinion, that's a good thing.
Okay.
If you use, if you know you have another use for the other half, you can go ahead and save it. But I like to just throw in the whole thing. And this is called roughly chopping. When you're roughly chopping your herbs, you can use the stems of parsley and cilantro. Other herbs that are more woody, you have to pick them off, like thyme and rosemary, which takes some time. But with cilantro, you can eat the stems, which is wonderful. So in they go. It's a very rough chop. Okay,
I just
now
want to
some,
say, like, for those of you who are just joining us on Facebook Live, Sarah does have some mad knife skills that have been practiced over time, but she is not a chef. She started just like much the way that she helps her students and the people who take the cooking classes one step at a time. So there's been a couple of comments of concern about your safety. So I just wanted to shout that out, that you've been practicing for a long time.
I have, and let me tell you, I have not cut myself since I took my basic knife skills class 7 years ago. So if you can find a basic knife skills class, highly encourage you to take it because it will change your life and you will never cut yourself again, at least not on a knife. You will cut yourself on a mandolin. Be very careful. Okay, I've got some egg that's going in, some celery that's going in, my lemon juice that's going in, my breadcrumbs, which are just a piece of bread that I toasted this morning and ground up in my food processor. I've got a little salt going in, and it says a pinch of cayenne going in. Okay, so now I'm going to mix these all up and get my stove going, and I'm just going to fry some up for you. When you are making something like this where you don't want to eat it raw, the way that you taste test it is you make a little one, fry it up, try it, and if you think it's well seasoned, good to go. And if you think it needs something, more salt, more lemon, more mustard, more ginger, whatever it is, then you have the opportunity to add it. So that's a great little trick if you're making like sausage patties or hamburger patties or salmon cakes like this. Okay, I have added everything that I had here to add, and I'm just kind of mixing these up to get all of the flavors combined. And then I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna wash. So I'm heating up my pan here with a little bit of olive oil. I pretty much only cook with olive oil because I don't have the brain capacity to think about different kinds of oils at different times. But there are many popular oils out there that people can use for this or different tasks.
Sarah, when you said you're heating up your pan, what is the temperature of the pan?
Oh, I'm heating it on a sort of medium high. But here, I'll make my little test patty. I'm going to make a little patty with my hands and squeeze it. And then
So then the point of the test patty is then to just make sure that what you're cooking is actually going to be better on a bigger scale. Is that right?
Yeah, just for the flavor. So, you wouldn't want to cook all of them and then find out that it really could have used more mustard or more lemon or more salt. You want to know that when you're coming out of the gate, especially if this is the first time that you're making this recipe.
Quick comment from Selena that any small change in diet will affect a positive change in the way we feel, just like she's basically repeating what you just said and
Right on.
emphasizing that right on. And then Kim also says oils are a whole new class. So just an idea for you, like what oils to use when. That's a really good point. Thanks a lot, Kim.
Like avocado oil, rice bran oil are really popular options for high heat oils. They also save you money because when you heat olive oil, you lose a lot of the flavor. And so you don't necessarily need to use olive oil because you're not going to have that olive oil flavor. You can use a more mild flavored oil like avocado or rice bran or other vegetable oils. Okay, I'm going to flip this guy over and just cook it for another minute. And then
what's the time on the pan for
I would say about
test patty
2 minutes per side.
For the test patty or the bigger patty or both?
Either, yeah, it depends how big you want to make them. That's a good question because you can make them small if you're making appetizers, or you can make them bigger if you're making a meal. Right? So I'm going to make these pretty, this one's pretty small. This is just for my test. And I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to let this cool a little bit. And then I'm going to taste it. But you just want it to be a little brown on top. And just make sure that your vegetables get cooked as much as you want them. So like the onions and celery, you want them to get cooked a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to break this up so it cools off a little bit.
While you're doing that, let me ask you, when you share this recipe and others that are similar to it with the people that you're giving these cooking lessons to and opening the doors for different kinds of eating, what's usually the response when something is unfamiliar, like a food that they've never seen before?
Quiet contemplation. People feel very intimidated by things that they're not familiar with. And we see this in our classes. People often bring questions in like, oh, I got a spaghetti squash or an artichoke from the food pantry, because food pantries give out a lot of produce and it might be unfamiliar. And it's just interesting how intimidated people feel by that when they don't feel intimidated by, learning how to go to school on Zoom. And, there's something about food and what we put in our body and our relationship with food and the environment and ourselves that just makes people really kind of curious and a little fearful about what to expect.
Do you find that there's like a mental health benefit almost that you can sense when there's that shift that, oh, I can do this?
I'm feeling a mental health benefit right now from eating this delicious salmon cake. It's so good. Absolutely. I think, in our modern world, we have a lot of things that we outsource or that are done for us or that we don't do because we're afraid of them. And I think the more of those things you can learn to do for yourself, the happier you will be. And that could be whatever is meaningful to you, like fixing your own bike or building a shelf in your kitchen or cooking a wedding cake for someone, whatever sort of DIY things you can do for yourself, I think will always make you feel better and more empowered and more human. I think we want to feel self-sufficient. We want to feel powerful. And one way we can do that is by taking care of our physical environment and our internal environment as well.
When we talk about what's so important to us at Esalen, the top of the list is potential. So when people start to tap into their potential with food, what kind of ramifications could it have for the rest of their lives?
I mean, of course, I'm biased, but I think that food is so central, and that if you learn to cook and you learn to take care of your body that way, you learn to take care of your family that way, all of a sudden you're going to start thinking about what else you could change and what else you could do with your life. Maybe you want to go back to school and get another degree, or you want to build a new bathroom in your house, or whatever these projects are that you want to do. Like if you can tackle a small thing like cooking that is, easy to get started, a pretty low barrier, and you have to do it anyway, right? You have to eat anyway. So you might as well do it in a way that empowers you and makes you feel strong and in control of your life.
Sarah Nelson from San Francisco-based 18 Reasons. We appreciate you taking the time to share the philosophy of accessible food and what it means to have food equity, or at least move in that direction for our society and just the bigger picture. So keep doing what you're doing, stay in touch, enjoy the holiday season, and thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and recipe online. We definitely will post it. Appreciate it. Bye, Sarah.
Bye.